Hey everybody, Jim and Chris here, back for another edition of a Keeping It Real podcast here on the old IGN.
Ye old
IGN. So, couple of big things to talk about this week.
Yeah.
Let's start though with America's latest tragedy, Fantastic Four.
America's favorite film.
Yeah. Opened in second place. Really, it bombed with 25.7 million. That's the actual second place. Behind Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, and globally it's only made, as of right now, it looks like around 65 million total. That's not good.
So what's interesting about that is second place. If you had told me like even
It's
6 months
loser,
ago,
as the kids say.
yeah, first loser. Yeah, if you had told me 6 months ago that would finish second place, I wouldn't believed it, because I would have just said no matter what, people are going to go see this movie just out of curiosity.
Or that Kingsman would end up being the more profitable Fox comic book movie this year.
Right. And so, yeah, it's a big. I think it's a big miss, and I think it is one time in recent memory where reviews have actually stopped people from going to it.
Yeah, I mean, when it was at, I think, did it get down to 8%, or was it always at 9% on Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah, the lowest I saw was 9%.
I mean, Batman and Robin had a higher tomato meter rating than that.
I believe Catwoman had a higher tomato meter rating than that for a while, so I'm not sure what it ended up at,
awful.
But not good.
Do you think, is that the end of the franchise?
Well, I mean, it's complicated for that franchise because, Fox holds the rights. And
actually, Constantine Films holds the rights.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So, but, yeah, so who knows how another one gets made? And I feel like Fox will cool their heels on it a while. I mean, it's such a damaged property right now, and Marvel's already kind of like not doing so much Fantastic Four stuff in the comics.
Yeah.
I guess they're doing some stuff in Secret Wars that I haven't read yet, but I think it's okay to let it sit there for a while. Like Marvel's got their slate forever.
Yeah.
Fox probably doesn't need it with all the X-Men stuff that they're doing. So
and
I think
why
it's fine
tarnish
to just,
that brand by brand in these?
Yeah, I think it's fine to just leave it and say like, we'll watch the rights circus play out in the media.
It still has 7 years before that. I mean, they made the movie to hold on to the rights again.
That's the earliest I would ever make a remake of that movie. Is 7 years.
I think so. Now, we have several reader emails, so I'm going to cherry pick a few here. But Aaron writes in, I have to imagine Marvel would rather consult on a film they are not producing rather than have a studio taint the characters so badly that they have to delay using them in any way once creative control returns. How can a studio let a project that should be an easy sell to audiences go so far off the rails?
I think it's I mean, there are all kinds of reports swirling about what happened behind the scenes in that movie, and you don't know what
between the filmmaker Josh Trank and his curious tweet last week.
Yeah, so you don't know what to think exactly. I mean, we don't know exactly what happened. Clearly, there was turmoil. Clearly, people knew that there was a problem.
There's going to be a great book about that, like what was it, The Devil's Candy, about Bonfire of the Vanities,
or like The Death of Superman Lives, but like the
that's
nightmare vision of it.
And I'm sure IGN will be covering that in fall when it actually happens.
So yeah, I mean, there was definitely some murkiness in terms of how this movie got made, and there's some definite problems, and
there's a lot of blame to go around.
And there's a lot of blame to go around. I would say like reps from both sides. Trank was saying, hey, I had a good cut of the movie, and it was 99%, like better than 99% of the movies out there, and then I think he subsequently deleted.
That sounds pretty arrogant, and THR had an article using a lot of unnamed sources because people don't want to put their names out there just yet, trashing the thing. That was one of the problems, I think. One of the reasons why I think, one of the many reasons why there was a low turnout is when the story becomes that your own director throws his movie under the bus opening weekend. That was stupid.
Yeah, it's ill. It's not. There's like
wait till the second weekend to do that.
There's sort of like some unsaid things that
That's a rookie mistake.
It's very much a said thing, actually.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't say that's an unsaid thing to do. You just shouldn't do that. I think if you're promoting a movie, and just give that movie every opportunity.
Yeah, I mean it's only going to hurt. He was looking at some career damage control regardless, but why self-inflict wounds at that point?
You could take the position that he was playing defense a little bit and saying like, hey, my version wasn't as bad, there was meddling, all this stuff. But when you start to hear...
Everybody says that.
When you
and
start
you know
to hear
what?
the other
Sometimes your
side,
version is bad, and you just don't want to hear criticism because you're an artist.
and sometimes there is meddling, so it's tough to decipher it. But I think the most telling quote
Fox
in that piece...
is certainly known for meddling. I mean, Wolverine, X-Men Origins, Wolverine went through that.
What's funny is that is a reputation that Fox has had, so one of the interesting quotes from that piece was, hey, they don't want that reputation anymore, and they want to shepherd these young filmmakers.
And there's a different boss over there now. A lot of it was Tom Rothman, who now is running up Sony, so we might hear some stories coming out of those films.
Right. So we'll see. I mean, I feel like there's a lot more to be dug into, and we'll hear a lot more of like the story of why this went wrong, but it just doesn't, it feels like really radioactive right now. Nobody really wants to talk, frankly about it, and like nobody wants to talk on the record about it is what I should say.
I think once they get through the home video release window, then people will be on the record. I can just see Miles Teller. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that will bite his tongue. Like he'll be the first one to pull like a Ryan Reynolds and talk trash about his own movie.
By the way, that'll be 50 days from now.
Yes, pretty much.
That home video window is going to come up really fast.
It's closing tight. Another Fantastic Four email from Rashad. Because the Fantastic Four are having such a bad track record in films, do you think they would work better as a live-action TV series? That's something we don't. The TV rights to Fantastic Four, we're a little murky on. So
I don't think that's the problem. I don't think it's short form versus long form. I think it's basically that they haven't gotten these characters right yet, and they haven't really nailed the tone yet. Like I think the Fantastic Four and Rise of the Silver Surfer, those two movies were tonally just too probably like primary colors, and this was too dark and too muddled. And
I mean, I feel like the Fantastic Four movies, the original two, I think a lot of it is that just Tim Story's direction is pretty tone deaf. Favreau had a light touch that, and the MCU movies are basically action comedies.
And they followed suit. I think he and Kevin Feige had a vision when they started with Iron Man, and they followed that through. They've carried that tone throughout. And they're starting to experiment with it more and more now with things like Daredevil and stuff like that. But, that tone kind of carried through most of their films.
Let's see. We also have an email here from Jason Pakovich. Woo-hoo! The Pack is back.
The Packster.
I don't think putting Fantastic Four in the X-Men movies will help reboot Fantastic Four either. It would detract from the X-Men movies.
You're right.
Does Fox give this up, or does Disney throw cash incentive? Here's my thing. Why would Marvel want to throw money at that? Like they can wait it out, and the price will probably only go down.
I think at some point, they have a lot of movies scheduled right now, a lot of them. So at some point, I do think they might want to try to bring it back in the stable. They're not necessarily going to be dealing with Fox, as you said. Constantine has those rights in some way, so they're going to have to negotiate with that, and I think that's down the line though. They've got their slate
and who
set.
knows too? Will his contract be up then, and will he still be at Marvel Studios? It could be a very different company at that point.
Do you ever think we'll be looking back at the MCU and be like, that was something that
was a moment in time.
Like that is something that is unprecedented, and that's something where it hasn't been repeated,
and God knows they're trying to repeat it everywhere.
Everybody's trying to repeat it, but I feel like it's started a really huge trend in movies now, and nobody's been mega successful at it yet. I think people have plans.
It's all about the right properties, there are so many factors that go into why Marvel has been able to pull this stuff off. And they have good taste, they get good casts, decent filmmakers, some great filmmakers, some just shooters, and then they market the hell out of it. They understand their properties. They speak the language of the nerds because they are fans first. Kevin Feige, the guy knows his stuff. Yeah,
and nobody over there is afraid to lean into the nerdiness, which I think is a lesson for everybody. You don't have to make it. And this is a point I would make about Apocalypse too. You don't necessarily have to make it all dark and
Right.
scary. It can be fun. It can branch out and
can be an
explore
adventure, you know.
all the emotions.
Raiders of the Lost Ark had a lot of dark moments in there, but it was still a lot of fun and funny. You know, I want to shift gears a little bit from Fantastic Four here, and talk about, since we're on the Marvel tip, let's talk about Black Panther.
Yes.
Now, those costume photos, set photos of the stunt double in their costume. Now, we should mention stunt double costumes aren't always as good as the main guy's costumes, because they're meant for jumping around, getting hit, things like that. But what did you think of it? I mean, clearly they're not the way you really should see the costume first and foremost.
I mean, I think a stunt costume is a stunt costume, and we've seen this happen before with other movies where you see that costume on somebody. Even with Captain America, the first time we saw that costume on set, we're kind of like, oh,
that was the stunt double guy.
That's kind of baggy, you know.
Yeah,
I don't know
looks
how I
a little
feel about
puffy.
this.
Yeah.
And you know, they do stuff in CG with CG in it.
Yeah.
A lot of the stunt stuff is going really fast too, so you're not seeing it in the same way.
I mean, it looked. You know, to me, it was interesting that it didn't quite look like that concept art that they put in. There was some sort of like white or silvery kind of piping in there.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, like, why do they always kind of over-textualize comic book costumes now? Is it just simply a lighting thing so that does it just look bad if it's just more matte or whatever? Or if, you know.
Because it's film and it's not stills, you want that three-dimensionality to the costume. And I think everybody still, I think, kind of harkens back to that original Spider-Man costume, which really brought that in.
Yeah.
You know, prior to that, I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
you
the
say
Batman
the Batman costumes
suits
were molded armor, but that's a little bit different. It's not a skin suit, you know?
Yeah.
And when you put something right against somebody's skin, you have to do something other than, you know, make it look like some kind of spandex.
I mean, it worked in the old Superman movie because it was still, because there was no...
Yeah.
There was no, he was impervious. He didn't need, you know, a fancy suit.
Yeah.
And now, you know, he can't just do that, especially when you have Batman and all these other people with like, check out my outfit, nice pajamas. Like, it's not gonna, you know. But overall, thumbs up or just need to see more?
Need to see more. I mean, I really like the concept art for Black Panther. I'm a huge Black Panther fan. This doesn't give me pause because it's a stunt
pause.
costume. I like we both doubled up on the meow there. But anyway, it doesn't give me pause. And so I'm fine with it. Like, a lot of people are really like crazy overreacting to this. I feel like we've seen this happen a bunch of times, you know. And I don't want to be like an apologist for it. If it comes out and the costume turns out to be not great, then let's
we went through
judge
this
it then.
with, you know, Quicksilver and everything too on the X-Men side. But I think he's going to look fine. I think I just want to see a good close-up shot of the mask. And you know, again though, you got to hand it to Marvel. Like, we're going to put a guy in a mask and not show his face. Like, between Iron Man, Ant-Man, am I missing War Machine? You know, like you know, they're not afraid of. You know, remember the Judge Dredd movie of the '90s, where it's like, it's Stallone, you got to get him out of the mask, you know, for a good chunk of the movie.
And Deadpool is doing that too, but over at Fox.
Yeah.
So people aren't shying away from it. It used to be a big rule. It used to be like, you cannot break this rule.
Yeah.
You have to show a person's face.
Yeah.
And they even did that a little bit with Cap in the original movie. They had him out of his helmet a lot.
Yeah.
And now they've kind of like put him back.
You mean the original Marvel movie or the 1991?
No, the Marvel Studios.
Yeah, I mean, even on the posters, they show a lot of Steve Rogers without the mask.
Yeah.
I noticed in the UK posters, they're okay with showing him in the mask. It's the domestic posters where they're like, you gotta show that handsome face.
Yeah, that's true. He's a dreamy-looking guy. What are you gonna do?
And he's another Boston guy, so that's why I like him. You mentioned Deadpool. You know what we have? We have Deadpool reader email, folks. Nick writes in, do you think Marvel is relieved that Fox is doing Deadpool? It looks like Fox is doing it right. Deadpool should be a hard R movie, but with Marvel being owned by Disney, there's no way Deadpool was ever going to get made or made correctly under Disney. It's an actual vote for Fox. Usually from fans, we're used to the opposite.
Well, you know, I do think it would be difficult to do Deadpool in the way that Fox is doing Deadpool. at Disney. I do think that would be hard to pull off. Like
you would have to do it on Netflix.
You're not going to do it you're not going to do it on movie screens, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever see an R-rated Disney movie, that involves Marvel.
Yeah, that's why they have the Netflix thing. Speaking of the R rating, Walter Barker, our pal Walter, writes in, do you think it's wise that Fox is pushing Deadpool's R rating so hard? Historically, R-rated superhero movies have underperformed at the box office. So it is really weird that Fox would be hitching its wagon to a rating that could potentially hurt its bottom line.
I think with Deadpool, they know their audience, and they're really, really going for that core audience, like hardcore, more hardcore than I've ever seen a studio go for a specific audience. And they're hoping and banking on the fact that those guys bring this character to more folks.
And I don't think it's any accident that the R rating was confirmed after Fox's own Kingsman Secret Service came out and did really well at the box office. Like we said earlier in the podcast, it's going to be the Fox comic book movie that actually won this year as opposed to Fantastic Four.
I think there was a little gamesmanship there too. Like I think they were always keeping that R rating in their back pocket, saying like, we can pull this card if we want to.
Yeah, let's see how much the fans really want this. Maybe we'll just put out an unrated Blu-ray.
And when we talked about it, I think it could work either way. Honestly, I think. If he was just to like address the camera and say, well, they won't let me say this, and then and then the rest of the movie is like bleeped or something.
Ferris Bueller style. Yeah.
I think he's gonna break the third wall or whatever.
Fourth
wall. I was gonna say he's gonna just break off of the third wall.
The Kool-Aid guy breaks the third wall. He breaks the fourth wall. Now let's move on from that and I'm just throwing out some comic book movie news. Tom Hardy reportedly producing and most likely starring in a big screen adaptation of the Vertigo comic, 100 Bullets. He did allude a few months ago that he had a really crazy DC project in the works. And so what do you think about that?
Guy's all about the franchises now, huh?
I know, right? And, I got to hand it to him for a guy who's such a kick-ass actor that he's not unafraid of give me the nerd properties. He's talked up a lot of video game properties. Like he's supposed to do Splinter Cell, but he's also said hey, if that doesn't work out, I'd love to do this.
If that doesn't work out, I'll do Metal Gear. Why not?
Yeah, pretty much.
I wonder what the state of the Metal Gear movie is with Konami being so. Well, Konami is just kind of so many problems right now that I can't see Metal Gear coming out of this.
I think right now. We got to see how Warcraft does when it comes out next year. There's a lot riding on that, and we've talked about in the podcast before how or maybe we haven't. I mean, I know Chris Tilley and I were both there for the Warcraft presentation at Comic-Con, and it left us both a little cold.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wasn't. It looked like when you see the trailers for the extended Blu-ray edition of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, but I can see this is 3 movies in one.
Right.
But I understand that. That's what the footage looked like. Is here's an entire trilogy in one movie. And I'm like, oh boy, I don't know who to latch onto. And frankly, I thought the effects looked better 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I think the
interesting
interesting thing about that is that they're trying to do it where you understand both sides and that there's no true bad guy. So we'll see if that pays off because it's a tough thing to pull off conflict in a movie where you care deeply about both sides.
Well, they're going to, they have that one secondary guy in each camp that's the villain for each one. So, there'll be that one human war at all costs and then the one orc, and I think it's Clancy Brown's character, because of course he's Clancy Brown, so of course he's going to be the bad guy. So you'll have the 2 heroes in each camp will be able to, we are going to rise above this, my brother, and all that.
It's going to be It's going to be angels. It's going to be aliens versus Predator.
It's going to be the end of Anchorman, where Baxter is talking to the bears about how you were a noble people and all that.
I love that we just made a Baxter reference in reference to Warcraft.
One other Fox, Mark Miller, Kingsman, all this stuff. Nemesis. His comic Nemesis, reportedly Fox is letting that one go, and now it's they're circling a deal with Warner Brothers, and it would be all the same creative elements. Director Joe Carnahan, producer Ridley Scott going over to Warner's for that. which is interesting since the movie is basically like the premise of the comic is basically, what if Batman was the Joker?
Right.
You know, so it'd be interesting if they can do that. Let's move on from comic books. Oh wait, I can't. One more item.
Oh wait.
Deadpool 2. Rumor has it Fox wants to, if they do a Deadpool sequel, they want to use Cable. Two of your favorite characters there,
Deadpool.
Chris.
I don't mind Deadpool, but Cable.
I mean, they had a comic book together about 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, I don't like Cable, but I think that's an era thing. You know, like
Yeah.
there's certain like X-Men characters, mutant characters that they just didn't really fall in my era, so I don't jive with them.
Yeah.
I think fans will be really into that if it happens.
I think you need to get like, if you can't get The Rock because he's already Black Adam, but if you could pair him like with an action star and really make it like a buddy action movie, or he's the villain and they're fighting each other or whatever, you know, then you could have something, but you know, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to move on. Let's talk about Star Wars, because Entertainment Weekly cover story, bunch of stuff in there, lots of new details.
Yep.
New characters that we found out about. The Lugga Beasts.
Yes.
Well, you know what he reminded me of? He reminded me of, there was that thing in, I think it was in New Hope. I don't know if he was a trash compactor character or he was in, maybe he was in the, he was in the Jawa's vehicle, and he looked like a walking dumpster.
Right, right.
You know, and it kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
Well,
Another
it's like
practical effect.
organic matter. It looks like an actual beast with this like box, like metal box on its face. So who knows what that thing does?
Yeah.
I mean, we know that Rey is a scavenger.
Yeah.
And so you see this beast, and then there's also a different like sort of life
Maybe
form.
that's like her sidekick, kind of like her R2. Or...
Could be. There's a different life form riding
Yeah.
the Lugga Beast too. So I think they're really gonna like build up that world.
And don't you already? We were talking beforehand. Like, I already want to buy that toy.
I do too. It's like this.
We're grown ass men, and we want to buy that.
It's this. It feels like this movie's dewback, you know,
Right.
like where you like remember the dewback where you used to
Yeah.
like stick the stormtrooper through its back. It was kind of gross, and had those like rubber flaps, and you would stick your action figures.
And it was and the dewback. I mean, how much screen time did he get? Like 10
It was
seconds?
like no, it was like seriously 2 seconds. It was like
and everyone's like, "That is awesome,"
because
is
it
a
was
giant
awesome.
iguana,
It was
you know?
awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it had. And you know it kind of is the Boba Fett effect actually,
Yeah.
where you see something for just a second and you fill in the whole world around it, and it's like
fanfic that thing.
if
yeah.
that was if George Lucas had access to CG effects, I feel like the dewback would have been running around like a crazy circus clown.
Didn't they CGI it for the special edition re-releases?
Yeah, but and it didn't look
that's
bad.
like-
It didn't look bad, but when you get just that glimpse, and I'm really, really hoping that J.J. Abrams gets this, when you get that throwaway glimpse at something that you can just fill in the rest of the details
Yeah.
about, it's special, and you need that. There's like a mystery there, and it also indicates that the universe is bigger than what you're seeing on
I mean,
the
Mos Eisley, the Cantina sequence is a perfect example of that. You know, you see Snaggletooth and Hammerhead, and the fact that we know their names because of toys for things that were just seriously a reaction shot in that.
I have a theory about this. I think this is why they threw away the extended universe. I think they do not want a world in which, every last Ugnaught has his own novel, and so like I think they really want to focus on.
It's a horrible world then if you can't have every last Ugnaught with a complex backstory.
But I mean, I really do think the fandom for Star Wars has gotten to the point where you have people who are hyper obsessed on the details and then want to know so much and want to build out so much around that character, or there are creators who want to stake their claim to that particular character and their origin, stuff like that. I think Disney's right in playing it close to their vest because it'll preserve some of that wonder.
Yeah, and it also opens up avenues for them to then do official spin-offs of things, whether it's in comic book form or whatever. Captain Phasma, you might like this. J.J. Abrams told EW that the name was inspired by the movie Phantasm.
Nice, that's awesome.
What was that? The thin old man, Angus Scriggs or something was his name? Yeah,
Angus Scriggs. So that's awesome.
He worked. He was on. Was it on Fringe or Lost or something? He popped up one of his shows, and
we always, we were kind of always thinking that name, especially like really harkens back to serials. It's that kind of crazy.
My Buck Rogers shirt.
Buck Rogers. For those listening at home,
I'm
Jim's
wearing a
Buck Rogers
shirt.
Old
school comic book Buck Rogers, like 1930s.
Nice. So I mean, I think a lot of what JJ is trying to do is bring it back to its roots, and they've said that over and over and over again. And I think some of these crazy names are part of that. I mean, it's not like Star Wars ever lost the crazy names, but it feels these names are starting to sink in now.
Yeah.
And it's starting to feel like Kylo Ren is just like, oh, this is Kylo Ren.
Yeah, and BB-8 is obviously, like, he said that's the one name that didn't change at any point was BB-8. Like, it just stuck. People were like, yeah,
nice.
Like that. Like other people, they had, different kind of variations on the names and stuff like that. Now, Kylo Ren, we did a whole conversation about Kylo Ren earlier this week, so we won't rehash sort of, his, is he actually like a child of one of the Skywalkers or Han Solo or whatever?
Yeah.
But let's talk in general about the fact that they are fleshing out a villain like right from the get-go, which I think is great, because if you look back at the first Star Wars, they're just bad guys. They're just there to be bad. And Darth Vader, there was a sense of mystery about him, that he was this old kind of like just almost like sorceress kind of henchman.
Yeah.
But from this one, they're like, right from the get-go, we want you to understand what's motivating this guy.
Yeah.
And what he's really after.
I really love the fact that he is into the old, Sith, and that is what is driving him.
Yeah.
I think that's a really smart idea. From the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, I like that they're going that way, because it could have just been like, the Force Awakens in my body, and now I'm evil. It could have been something like that, but I don't think it is.
Well, I love that it's also, it is a twisted sort of commentary on fandom, too.
Yeah. Like
the intensity of fandom. Like, he's, and we've done a conversation in the past about, like, Kylo Ren basically being a Darth Vader fanboy, but it's true. It's an interesting sort of play on a lot of these things. Now, what do you think?
I have one comment before I lose it. I was brushing my teeth the other day, and I was thinking about, this is what I do when I brush my teeth, by the way. I was thinking about Darth Maul, and I was thinking about that final encounter between Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn, and how, and the music was playing.
Were you doing that with your brush? Were you like using it like a lightsaber?
I was spinning it around, and then another brush came out the other end, and I was doing it on both sides. Anyway, so, and I thought of the name Duel of the Fates. Right? I thought that's what that thing was called. And I remember being spoiled by that soundtrack, because it was like,
oh my God, yeah.
It was basically like,
didn't they say Qui-Gon's death?
Yeah, it was like, it was basically the name of the song was like, Qui-Gon dead.
Yeah.
But so Duel of the Fates actually is a way more subtle way to say that, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's what I was thinking. I was like, they straight up spoiled it with the song that came after.
Yeah.
But before, they were talking about duel of these two fated characters who were not going to make it out of there. I mean, Darth Maul kind of did, Retro, whatever. But those guys like bit the big one in that scene, and Duel of the Fates tipped you off.
Yeah. I mean, I just got to say, I didn't realize you still thought about Phantom Menace as passionately as you did in 1999.
I don't know. I have no defense.
It's an amazing look, man.
I have no defense. No defense.
Some other Star Wars stuff that came out of that EW article. J.J. Abrams says he is, despite some recent rumors, he is not directing Episode 9. Rian Johnson, of course, is directing Episode 8. So I'm just curious, who would you like to see direct Episode 9? My vote is for Brad Bird, because he's coming off of Tomorrowland, and frankly, he could kind of use something.
Yeah,
like
that would be good. I hadn't really thought of it. I think, it's one of those things where, like, I almost don't feel like I need to give that any thought, because I think they're going to do it right. Not like my my thinking about it is going to make anything come true, but sometimes you think, man, it's got to be this guy, it's got to be this this person, whatever. But yeah, in this particular case, like, I don't know. I think they've been doing a pretty good job picking directors. And even, I will say, even Josh Trank, based on Chronicle, I thought was an interesting choice.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the Fantastic Four stuff was weird, but and they probably did the right thing.
Now we have Lord Miller coming in with the Han Solo.
They're taking the right
prequel.
people, right?
I mean, my God, they're poaching some good talent. So I don't think somebody like a Brad Bird is out of the realm of possibility. It is several years off. You could probably squeeze in one more movie in between then.
Yeah, and I think he's probably the person. Like I'm sure they're looking at him because he's a very competent director.
He's part of the Disney
part
family.
Of that group,
Yeah, they all know him. One other thing I want to talk about, kind of Kylo Ren related, is let's talk about the Knights of Ren more. We mentioned them a little bit in our previous conversation, but how big of a role do you think the Knights of Ren are going to be? Are they just going to be like mentioned in passing, like the way in New Hope they're like, the old Republic, or Jedi Knights? Well,
I think they might be saving more of them for future movies. So I don't even know that we'll see that many, or if we do, we'll see them.
Do you think he killed all of them?
Oh, that could be awesome.
He wanted to be the only Knight of the Ren?
Knight of the Ren table. I don't know. I mean, I like that they're calling themselves Knights.
Yeah.
For one thing,
Well, they're embracing sort of, and it kind of ties in with the idea of like they see themselves as the heroes of their own story, not the villain. And so knights are, obviously you're thought to be noble and heroic and all that.
You don't have Sith knights, you have Sith and you have Jedi knights. So if you're calling yourself a knight, maybe if he has this real bond to Darth Vader, he knows Darth Vader's entire arc, right? He's probably going to see him as a tragic figure. Yeah. He's not going to see him as an evil person. He's going to be like, oh, tragic figure, this guy.
What if they are all like just fallen Jedi Knights of what was left of them, I suppose,
I mean, I love that idea too.
Although,
it'd be very cool.
Now I'm going to get taken to nerd school. How many, I know Order 66.
Maybe not by me, I don't know.
Order 66 was supposed to kill off all the Jedi, but yet,
well,
Ben
Obi-Wan survived.
And Luke and Yoda.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not to say, this movie is called Force Awakens, and it's, it could be like a rekindling of the old fires, but without midichlorians because they've said that's
They
not
have said
happening.
no midichlorians.
Thank God.
Any other final thoughts on Star Wars before we wrap up on this?
I just, it hasn't taken a wrong step yet, which is like scary this deep. It's not scary, it's great this deep in the process, but you're like, when is the other shoe going to drop?
I was kind of thinking about that. They're wonderful. The marketing has been wonderful. The trailers are awesome, but we have not heard, outside of Andy Serkis, we have not heard any of the new characters speak. We have not heard any of their dialogue. It has been basically kind of couched in nostalgia. They got a lot of points off the Chewie we're home bit and just the overall look and feel of the action. But we have no indication of the chemistry between any of these actors, the effectiveness of their performances, if any of that actually works. My fear is that this movie has nowhere to go but down now.
We're in August, and they don't have to play a single line of dialogue, and the same amount of people will go see it.
Yep.
So I feel like, we always talk about the JJ mystery box, and we haven't talked about it much for Star Wars because they've been kind of like meeting out these little bits of information this whole time. But when you stop and you look at what they've actually told people, it really isn't that much. It's like, oh, there's this evil guy, and
we know that
this villain.
Anakin's lightsaber that was passed on to Luke, and then he lost it in Bespin. That's going to be the lightsaber. That's the lightsaber we see in the movie being handed to Leia. So
there's a lot of rumors. There's a lot of leaked stuff that's supposedly out there. I've heard really conflicting things from all those reports.
Yeah.
I'm almost inclined to believe that some stuff was leaked and some stuff was leaked and some stuff was like then leaked subsequently to create confusion about what's actually happening. But I think ultimately they don't have to mutter a word, and I think the next trailer we'll see a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to do. I don't think they're going to do this is the whole story, because I think JJ wants to keep things mysterious. And if you have any movie that can keep things this mysterious, it's Star Wars, because you don't have to market this movie much.
Yeah. Speaking of which, this weekend is the D23 Expo. It's Disney's, I think, biannual convention for fans, for Disney fans, and it's part of the D23 fan club. Star Wars will be there along with Marvel. but there will be no new Force Awakens footage shown. But
Right.
we might get some special guests showing up. you
Yep.
know?
And like I think that's the draw of that, and I'm sure they'll be talking about love of Star Wars and all that
yeah.
stuff. But I don't really think it's going to be that much. And I think the Entertainment Weekly stuff that came out this week is kind of setting the stage for that, so they
Yeah.
can have certain discussions.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Driver showed up because of the Kylo Ren stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. We don't know.
Yeah.
We have absolutely no idea who's going to be there. I think the bigger deal at D23 is going to be Civil War. I think that's what
Right.
we're actually going to hear some
Oh yeah,
stuff.
we're going to see some footage from that. So definitely stay tuned
Yeah,
over the
Saturday
weekend
morning,
at IGN.
be
Saturday
on
morning.
IGN.
Yeah,
on
everything's going to be breaking. We'll have our reactions to the footage. Don't expect to see the footage online legally, anyways, and don't go seeking it out if it's illegal. But more than likely, it won't be released for some time because D23 is different from Comic-Con. It's a Disney in-house kind of thing, and the fans there are generally very respectful of what Disney wants because they are Disney fans first and foremost.
And it is a membership, so it is it's a little bit different than just
Nobody
buying a
wants to get
ticket.
kicked out of the club.
Yeah, you can't get your pins, man. I don't know
You
if
don't want
the
to
pins
get
are a
kicked
thing.
in the ass by a giant mouse.
No.
So we're going to have coverage of that, and then they're also going to have Disney Animation, and Pixar will be there. So there will be Finding Dory and Moana. Hopefully, The Rock will show up for that. And then there's The Good Dinosaur, and maybe something on the Frozen sequel. Zootopia will be there.
And Lucas is going to be there too.
Yeah, Lucas is receiving a Legends Award, as is Danny Elfman. And then
They both are. I mean, like,
yeah, well, they earned it. And then
Yeah, exactly.
also live action wise, I think Alice in Wonderland 2 is going to be there. I think it's called Through Glass Darkly or whatever the sequel is.
A
It's from the
Scanner
book.
Darkly with Glass.
And then The Jungle Book. And I do wonder if you're going to do one Johnny Depp movie, why not tout Pirates 5 too? I know it's still in production, but
Yeah.
so is Civil War, and that's going to be there.
Yeah. True.
So keep it here on IGN over the weekend for all things D23. And let us know your comments below about all your thoughts on all these new Star Wars details, Kylo Ren, all that jazz. Let's move on and talk about Hateful Eight because that trailer dropped this week.
We talked about it yesterday.
We did a little rewind theater, but we didn't really get a chance to say necessarily what we thought of the trailer. What'd you think?
It's a sliver of a look at that movie. The things I really liked about it are, I like the idea of it being a film like Reservoir Dogs, where it's kind of confined to a place for a good portion of time, where these people are interacting, people are maybe coming in and out of the scene. I like that idea, and I love the cast. The cast is just great.
Fantastic.
I mean, Jennifer Jason Leigh looks like amazing in this movie. Just her little hang expression that she does for like 1 second in the trailer was amazing to me. So I'm really looking forward to her in the movie. I think Sam Jackson's like bringing it as usual, but my big, super man crush is on Kurt Russell for this thing.
Yeah, and we were saying in the rewind theater how he out Tombstone on his stash.
His mustache.
You know what, dude? Because your beard is all grown out now, you should shave the chin and do the full-on Tombstone stash. Dude.
I would get kicked to the couch for the rest of my life.
We have a reader email from Nick about the trailer. He had watched our rewind, and you reminded us that someone leaked out the script. Everyone has indicated that it was either one of the actors or one of their reps. My question is, what does an actor or rep gain by leaking the script onto the internet? It seems like it would be really dumb for an actor or the client of a rep to get such a great job of being in a Tarantino movie and then ruin it by leaking the script.
Yeah, so we have no insight into who it was. Really, we could guess like anybody can, but I mean, what likely happened, what I'm thinking happened is that, somebody gave it to their agent and the agent, didn't secure it in some way.
Yeah.
And that's how it happened.
Yeah.
No agent, no actor would ever do that.
Well, I've had some people leak stuff to me in the past, but
not in a like, hey.
Apparently what the understanding I have from past Tarantino interviews is that he gave it to his small circle of actor buddies. just a rough draft saying, hey, this is what I have in mind. I have you an idea in mind for this role. So it was only given to these, a handful of people that he trusts. And like you said, one of them gave it to their agent. And that's how it got out, because the agent had somebody make a Xerox or something. Or their assistant took it and put it online.
There's no way in hell that one of these people he's close to, like, went out and was like, I'm going to leak this. That just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, but it had to have happened in that, like, exchange. And, I mean, we've been around scripts a bunch of times and know what that's like. And it's not like, as much as people like to talk about things being secure, they're not secure. That shit gets passed around to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of there are a lot of hands involved in things, and although you do hear about people, the script is locked up, you have to go to like Nolan's house to read it. Or
For sure, and Star Wars is like that actually. Like all the details of the plot are supposedly like really, really. Kept under wraps.
Now, just want to rattle off some news and rumors. Bill Murray reportedly is going to be in the Ghostbusters reboot, and Birth Movies Death claims that he plays a character specifically written in the script, a leaked script, as it's all come full circle,
right.
Named Martin Heiss, who is a ghost debunker. So basically kind of the flip side of how we saw Murray at the beginning of Ghostbusters 2. Too cutesy?
Yeah, I don't love it. I mean, I love Bill Murray. I think everybody does, but I don't want, it's like, seems like stunt casting to me, and I would much rather he be Venkman in some respect in that script. Like, even if it's just, even if he's like a ghost, which is one of the things that people had said before. Yeah. Even if he's in it for 13 seconds as Venkman,
or a cabbie,
I would rather have that. But he's doing cameos lately. He did Dumb and Dumber 2, right? And he's done some other stuff.
It'd be funny to see him actually play like his character from Scrooge, and they're on like their show, on his show or something.
Now that's cutesy.
Yeah. Some other news: Winona Ryder says that Beetlejuice 2 is happening, and she's in it.
Cool.
And
on both fronts.
And then the Mummy reboot, Alex Kurtzman said that people were a little concerned that it was being described as an epic action movie.
Again.
But he says that horror fans were like, look, it was a horror movie first.
Yep.
And if this is going to be a shared Universal Monsters universe that you guys are doing, it's got to have some horror. So now he's kind of like saying, no, it'll have horror, but the trick is trying to find the balance of what do you mix it with.
Right.
Why can't The Mummy just be a horror movie?
I think it's a shared universe thing, It's like, how do you make a horror shared universe, and that's what they want to do. So like, you have to ride that line, I think.
It smells like Van Helsing or Lee of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
To me, it sounds like The Mummy. That they made with Brendan Fraser.
And I think, and then another reunion for DiCaprio and Scorsese. They're going to team up for the novel Devil in White City. Mm-hmm. And Leo's been wanting to play H.H. Holmes, like America's first. Basically, it was America's Jack the Ripper, and he's wanted to play this character for years. So it sounds like that's actually going to happen.
I welcome any of their collaborations. Let's just put it that way. They do a decent job together. So. Okay,
so opening up this weekend, we have Straight Outta Compton, which is getting some awesome reviews.
That sounds like 98% or some crazy.
I think it was like 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is great. And then The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Most of y'all out there wouldn't remember the old TV show. I've only seen little bits of it here and there.
I've never seen it.
I know the premise of it and all that. I've seen the movie, and I have to say, I haven't seen Straight Outta Compton yet. I couldn't make the screening this week, so I'll have to go after D23 is done and go see that, because I feel like one of my problems with biopics is, why does this subject's life story need to be told? What is it about them? And I think Straight Outta Compton it's a period piece that actually is relevant and topical to now, and important with a capital I. And not a lot of biopics, especially showbiz ones, can say that. So it seems like it's got the moment right now, and so I think the movie is going to do huge. Man from U.N.C.L.E., I didn't think Armie Hammer and Henry Cavill had any chemistry together. In fact, I thought Henry Cavill was incredibly wooden in this movie.
So we'll see. I mean, I feel like Straight Outta Compton has a shot of being number one.
Oh, I think it's going to dominate. It's Fandango pre-sales are pretty strong. It's tracking anywhere between 25 to 55. I think I'm going to go on the high end. I think it's got a good shot at, say, 45 to 50.
Yeah, I was going to say 50, and then I think about 30-ish for Man from U.N.C.L.E.
See, I think Man from U.N.C.L.E. is going to be in the teens. I think.
Really?
I'm going to say like 14, because I don't get any sense of desire to see that movie. Like, I think they're trying to, because it's Guy Ritchie, they're trying to go for like the Sherlock Holmes thing, but I just don't think anybody really knows or cares about either Henry Cavill or Armie Hammer.
It's also in a rough place, because if you want to see a spy movie right now, Mission Impossible is still in the theaters.
Yep.
So it's like,
and if you want the retro thing, you could stay home and watch Kingsman.
Yeah, right.
Because that got good reviews, and this one's getting
It's just mainly mediocre reviews. It's not like everybody hates it. It's just, it's no Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
But I think it'll outperform Fantastic Four. I just do.
Yeah.
But Fantastic Four made, what, 24 million? That's
I think it's going to drop down. I think Fantastic Four will be like
in the cellar.
5 to 7 million. Yeah.
Well, and I think the studio's in sort of like write it off mode now. Like they don't care about it.
I mean, we'll see how it does overseas, but so far its performance overseas has been kind of on par with how it's doing here. So, usually you can fool the folks of Sri Lanka into going to see your crappiest American movie, but because they're like, hey, spectacle. I love that.
And spectacle is what plays across, international boundaries, because.
But the spectacle in this one didn't even look that good.
Yeah, well, it's not that spectacular, right?
Yeah. Well,
it's not that fantastic.
You went there, I didn't.
No,
so I get points for that one.
Sorry about that.
There we go. Well, we want to know what you guys think of whatever movies you go see this weekend, whether it's Straight Outta Compton, Man from U.N.C.L.E. If you're finally getting around to see Fantastic Four, let us know why you did. Maybe you heard so many bad things, you're like, I have to see it now. Maybe it's having a reverse effect.
It'd be amazing if it outperformed just from the car wreck factor.
People are like, oh my God, I have to see this turd. I have to know how bad.
It's not going to happen.
So find us on Twitter at Chris Carle, at Jim Vejvoda. Give us a shout out in the comments. Props on iTunes. Check out our fellow shows, Channel Surfing, and then the UK folks have Rebel Base and the Superhero Show. And then, oh God, what's the one the AU does now? I went right out of my head. I'm so sorry, AU. Sorry, Lucy, and all you guys. So check us out there. For all things movies, keep it here on IGN.